Imagine someone hands you a cup of dark, frothy chocolate, still warm, with a thick layer of foam on top, the same drink only kings and warriors were allowed to taste. You take a sip, it's rich, spicy, a little bitter, unlike anything you've ever had. And then, minutes later, you're walking up a stone staircase, and that cup turns out to be the last thing you'll ever taste in your life. That actually happened. Not once, but over and over again for hundreds of years in the heart of the Aztec Empire. Cacao, the plant that eventually became your candy bar, your hot cocoa, your Valentine's Day gift, was once tangled up with one of the most brutal practices in human history. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why a bean that tastes like bitter chocolate ended up soaked in blood. Why the Aztecs thought giving someone their favorite drink right before killing them was actually an act of honor, and how an entire economy built on war, tribute, and a plant that couldn't even grow near the capital pushed thousands of people toward the sacrificial stone. This isn't just a story about chocolate, it's a story about power, obsession, and how far people will go for something they believe is worth more than gold. So let's go back, way back, to a place called Tenochtitlan, the capital of the Aztec Empire, sitting right in the middle of a lake in the Valley of Mexico. Here's the first twist most people don't expect. Cacao trees don't grow in the Valley of Mexico. The climate is too dry, too cool, too high up. Cacao needs hot, humid, tropical conditions, the kind you'd find hundreds of miles away, down in what's now the Gulf Coast region or further south towards Central America. So right away, we've got a problem. The most powerful empire in Mesoamerica loved a plant it physically could not grow at home. That single fact changes everything. Because when the thing you want most isn't in your backyard, you've got two choices. You trade for it, or you take it. And the Aztecs did both. Let's talk about what cacao actually meant to these people, because it wasn't just a snack. Cacao beans were currency, real, actual money. Historical records from Spanish friars who lived among the Aztecs, like Bernardino de Sahagún, describe entire price lists using cacao beans. A turkey might cost around 100 beans. A rabbit, maybe 30. Even something as small as a single tomato could be bought with a handful of beans. People counted their wealth in cacao the way we count ours in coins. There were even reports of counterfeiters hollowing out cacao shells and stuffing them with dirt to pass off as real currency, which honestly, that's basically ancient identity theft. Cacao actually has a scientific name that proves just how much people valued it. It's called Theobroma cacao, and Theobroma literally means food of the gods in Greek. That name was given centuries later by a Swedish scientist named Carl Linnaeus, but it shows how far this reputation traveled, all the way from Aztec temples to European science books. And the Aztecs weren't even the first to treat cacao like something divine. Archaeologists have found cacao residue on pottery from the Olmec civilization, dating back over 3,000 years. And the Maya were drinking ceremonial cacao long before the Aztecs ever rose to power. So by the time the Aztecs took control of central Mexico, cacao already had this deep, sacred reputation baked into the culture around it. The Aztecs didn't invent the idea that chocolate was holy. They inherited it, then built an entire economy and religious system on top of it. But cacao wasn't just money, it was sacred. The Aztecs believed the drink made from cacao, called zocoatl, was a gift from the gods. Specifically from a god named Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, one of the most important deities in the entire pantheon. According to the myths, Quetzalcoatl stole the cacao tree from paradise and gave it to humans as a gift, and for that, he was punished by other gods who thought humanity didn't deserve something so powerful. Cacao was never treated like an ordinary crop. It was treated like stolen fire, something too good for regular people, something with a price attached to it. And who got to drink it? Not everyone. This was strictly for the elite: emperors, nobles, high-ranking warriors, and priests. The famous Emperor Moctezuma was said to drink dozens of cups a day, served in golden cups that were used once and then thrown away. Picture that level of luxury. One use, then gone, like a royal doing a mic drop with a coffee cup. The drink itself was nothing like the sweet hot chocolate we know today. There was no sugar in Mesoamerica back then. Instead, the Aztecs mixed ground cacao with water, chili peppers, and spices like vanilla, then whipped it by pouring it back and forth between vessels from a height until it built up a thick, prized foam on top. That foam was actually considered the best part, almost more valuable than the liquid itself. And this is the part most people never connect to chocolate. Because cacao was so valuable and because it only grew in specific hot lowland regions far from the capital, the Aztec Empire needed a steady, reliable supply. And the way empires get steady supplies of anything is tribute. Conquered regions were forced to pay the empire in goods, and cacao was one of the most demanded items on that list. Some tribute records show certain provinces were required to hand over tens of thousands of cacao beans every single year, just as a tax for staying alive under Aztec rule. But what happens when a region doesn't want to hand over its most valuable crop? What happens when trade routes get blocked or a neighboring group refuses to cooperate? You go to war, and this is where things start connecting directly to the sacrifices. The Aztecs fought something called Xochiaoyotl, often translated as the Flowery Wars. These weren't just about land or political control. A huge purpose of these wars was capturing prisoners, because Aztec religion demanded a constant supply of human sacrifices to keep the sun rising and the world from ending. So think about the chain here. Cacao, demand fuels trade and tribute pressure. Tribute and trade pressure fuels military expansion. Military expansion fuels war, and war produces prisoners who become sacrifices. Chocolate didn't cause human sacrifice on its own, but it was one of the threads woven into a massive economic and religious system that absolutely depended on conquest and captives. Now let's get to the part that really messes with people's heads, the direct link between cacao and the act of sacrifice itself. Aztec religious ceremonies had a practice where a chosen victim would impersonate a god for an extended period before being killed. This role was called an exiptla. One of the most famous examples happened during a festival honoring the god Tezcatlipoca. A young man, usually a captured warrior with no physical flaws, was selected roughly a year in advance. For that entire year, he was treated like royalty. He wore fine clothes, learned to play music, was given attendance, and was fed the best food in the empire, including, you guessed it, cacao. He drank chocolate daily, the same drink reserved for kings. Then, on the day of the festival, that treatment ended in the most final way possible. He was led up the temple steps and sacrificed, his heart offered to the gods. Some accounts describe cacao being given to sacrificial victims right before the ritual, treated almost like a final honor, a symbolic last taste of the divine world before crossing into the next one. To us, that sounds horrifying, giving someone their favorite drink minutes before ending their life. But to the Aztecs, this wasn't cruelty in their eyes. It was an incredible honor, a way of saying, you are worthy of walking among the gods. There's another group tied directly into this, the Pushteksa, powerful long-distance merchants who traveled far beyond the empire's borders to trade goods. These merchants held massive banquets to celebrate successful trading expeditions, and disturbingly, some of these banquets included the ritual sacrifice of enslaved people, accompanied by feasting that included cacao drinks for the guests. The very merchants who brought cacao into the empire were sometimes the same people funding and hosting these ceremonies. Chocolate sat right there on the table, next to violence, next to celebration, next to death, all treated as part of the same event. So here we are at the center of it all. A bean roasted, ground, whipped into foam, poured into golden cups was simultaneously currency, luxury, religious offering, and in some cases, a final gift given to someone about to die. It wasn't good or evil on its own. It was a mirror reflecting exactly what the Aztec world valued most: power, honor, the gods, and the belief that the universe needed to be fed with human life to keep functioning. Cacao didn't create that belief, but it was stitched into nearly every layer of it, from the tribute lists that sparked wars to the final cup handed to a man walking up temple steps for the last time. When the Spanish arrived and eventually took cacao back to Europe, they stripped away almost everything that made it sacred. They added sugar, removed the chili, and turned it into a sweet treat for European nobility, completely disconnected from gods, warriors, and sacrifice. Today, when you unwrap a chocolate bar or sip a mug of hot cocoa, you're holding a plant with one of the strangest, darkest histories of any food on Earth. What started as a stolen gift from a punished god ended up fueling wars, funding empires, and sitting on the very last table of people who never got to see the sunrise again. Next time you taste chocolate, you might just think about that golden cup and everything it once meant to hand someone their favorite drink. One final time. If you like uncovering the real history hiding behind everyday things, hit subscribe.